Now let's look towards Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard is doing something that I wasn't anticipating. Sometimes you find something when you're not looking. That's what they say in rom-coms, right? You're going to find the one as soon as you stop looking.
Mm-hmm. That's how they get you.
Chuba Hubbard has played his way into the Panthers' 5-year plan, or what I think should be their 5-year plan. And that's crazy. This is a 25-year-old running back who is a free agent this offseason for a team that is coming off being the worst team in the NFL and started 1-3. And I'm sitting here going, you know what? Yeah, let's pencil in a running back into the 5-year plan. Running backs are almost never a part of a 5-year plan.
No. Most of them don't even make it 5 years.
If you are a highly drafted running back, I'm talking like Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, maybe. That's about it. Especially veterans who are making darn near no money, are in a contract year, and have a second-round pick that is about to become a competitor in their backfield. Jonathon Brooks was drafted in the 2nd round, and as soon as he gets healthy, he's going to move into that competition, and most teams would say, if I draft a running back in the 2nd round, I want them to get all the touches. They better be so awesome that nobody else gets any air to breathe in that backfield. But you start to peel layers back, and you start to see, all right, well, maybe that doesn't apply to Chuba. All right, well, maybe that doesn't apply to Chuba. All right, maybe that doesn't apply to Chuba. Oh, that's something to actually aid in the fight to keep Chuba around. Let's start with maybe the interpersonal, the people, the human side of it. Dan Morgan, the Panthers GM, he had a pretty successful run as a Panther himself back in the day. Didn't he have 25-something tackles in a Super Bowl? He had a pretty darn good career. Who did he play with? A couple of running backs you may have heard of. Jonathan Stewart, very, very good running back.
Yeah, Jace too.
D'Angelo Williams, very, very good running back. Also, mediocre, amazing race contestant. But if you didn't watch that season, it's okay. But those two guys, two of them, and they were very successful. So couldn't you see Dan Morgan going, you know what? I like having two running backs. Maybe that could even extend Jonathon Brooks' career. I just said even highly drafted guys aren't guaranteed to be in a 5-year plan. If you have Chuba take some of the wear and tear off of Jonathon Brooks, maybe that extends his career. The same way J. Stu and D. Will were able to extend that run together. Because it's not like they were together for a flash in the pan. They were together for the better part of a decade. A committee saves wear and tear. And a partnership of two really, really good bell cow running backs really saves wear and tear. Let's look at the human side some more. I have a theory about former players. And this especially goes for former players that work their way into the front office side of things. They can't help. It's deep in the recesses of their brain, deep in the subconscious. They can't help but chase what they had success with. In a lot of ways, I think they can't help but chase what they did well. Right? Which is why John Elway, as the decision maker for the Broncos, was like, let's draft a tall, strong-armed quarterback every year. It's like, oh, really? Where'd you find that archetype there, John?
Huh, yeah. Brock Osweiler, how you doing there,
buddy? Oh, okay, gotcha. Cool. Thankfully, Peyton Manning came around and saved that guy.
Yeah.
But if you look at Dan Morgan, you're going to be chasing what was good when you played. You just can't help it, right? It's you very rarely see like a player become a coach, and if they played their entire career in the West Coast offense, they're not over here going like, actually, no, I'm not going to run the West Coast. They run what they know. They run what they're good at. They build to replicate what they've had success with. So Dan Morgan's going to try to replicate the team that he went to the Super Bowl with. I'd say subconsciously. And then later today, there's another point. Later today, we're going to air a conversation with myself and Mike Glennon. Mike Glennon, longtime NFL quarterback. And we were talking about one of the big pieces of news yesterday, which was a potential Deontay Johnson-Adam Thielen trade. And One of the way I phrased the question was, I believe Deontay Johnson was brought in to aid in Bryce Young's development. Last year, he struggled without a number one wide receiver, so they traded for Deontay Johnson so Bryce Young would have a number one wide receiver, and they could evaluate him without that anchor holding him back of not having the number one. And now that Bryce Young is not playing, I mean, you don't need to evaluate Andy Dalton. You know what Andy's got. Andy's Andy. Andy's the red rifle. Do you need Deontay Johnson anymore? Could you trade him? And what you'll hear Mike say later on in the show when we air that conversation is, okay, like I get that. But you better have a plan for wide receiver moving forward, or else you're going to saddle the next quarterback with the same thing you saddled Bryce Young with. Right? So if you move on from Deontay Johnson, you better have a plan to get another number one, because you tried to correct your mistake in not giving a young quarterback a number one wide receiver. So I'm going to take that same logic and apply it here. A dominant run game would help the next quarterback. Chuba Hubbard and Jonathon Brooks being effective behind a very highly paid offensive line. Mm-hmm. If I'm Carson Beck, who, by the way, didn't look great against Alabama, so maybe we have to stop using him as the example. If I'm Jalen Milroe, if I'm Shedeur Sanders, if I'm Quinn Ewers, if whoever you draft at the top, if you draft someone at the top, I think you could really benefit by having Chuba Hubbard back there with you. Or Jonathon Brooks. Or Jonathon Brooks when Chuba's tired. Or Chuba when Jonathon Brooks is tired. Or both of them. Or both split out in the slot. I'm just saying Chuba Hubbard, he's playing very well, back-to-back 100-yard games.
Yep.
I don't think this is reactionary. We've seen him do it over the last few years when given the full opportunity. Mm-hmm. Also, even with that success, I don't see him being super expensive on the open market this upcoming offseason.
No, because he's not a game breaker of a running back.
He's not he had his career long rush of 38 yards, and it wasn't a touchdown this past week. Mm-hmm. So he's not going to get the Christian McCaffrey money or anything close to it.
Saquon, none of those guys.
Yeah, exactly. So he's going to be some step below that, or some multiple steps below that. So he's not going to bankrupt your cap. And on top of that, I think it's the dog thing. If Dan Morgan wants to put his salary cap decisions, his roster decisions where his mouth is, over the last 2 years, I don't know if you find someone on the offense that is more of a dog. And Dan Morgan, from the moment he took over as GM, said, when I'm looking at building this roster, I want to find dogs. Chuba Hubbard is that. Chuba Hubbard is a short yardage guy. Chuba, double bubble Chuba Jabu.
Yeah.
Chuba Hubbard, aside from having a name that can become a tongue twister, is a dog.
It's funny because when Dave Morgan talked about that at his introductory press conference, he specifically mentioned Jay Stu.
Even better.
He specifically called that guy like Jay Stu says, we need some dogs.
If we're like, dressing up for Halloween, Chuba Hubbard would be Jay Stu and Jonathon Brooks would be D'Angelo. Like that would be the roles, if the thunder to the lightning, whatever you want to call it. I think he's one of those. And if you want to put your actions where your mouth is, I think you put Chuba Hubbard on the team next year.
Where is he on the dog scale? The Dan Morgan dog scale, the dogometer.
I think he's at least a bulldog.
I'd say at least.
With the potential, if he gets... As we update the Dan Morgan dogometer, I think he's one more 100-yard game away from being the German Shepherd as far as you can possibly go. The biggest, the baddest dog. If he would have gotten in on the 1-yard line on the opening drive when he had multiple chances this past week, I may not even be able to keep him off of the furthest right now. But I'm one more dog play away from giving Chuba Hubbard the biggest group. One more away. He's a bulldog. I still think there's only one true top line, all the way maxed out dog on the roster. It's Derrick Brown, and he's hurt. I think Robert Hunt's getting close.
Yeah.
If he keeps throwing people out the club 5 yards downfield, he's going to get there. I think Chuba Hubbard is close. And then everyone else has some room to work. Some room to work. But Chuba Hubbard, if you could get him on a 3-year, $15 million deal.
Oh, yeah.
8 guaranteed at signing. Mix that in with a second-year rookie contract, Jonathon Brooks, for the first 3 years of that deal. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
That's a good backfield for whoever steps into quarterback.
I love it.
And then Dave Canales can follow up with all that. I want to run the ball. I want to build with the run. I want to run the ball. Everybody can put their money where their mouth is here. Dan Morgan, sign the dog. Dave Canales, give the dog the ball. And then you both will have been men of your word.